Okay, and we'll look for the chat here. Okay, just want to make sure, can everybody hear me? Okay, thanks, Ron. Ron would like to get, oh, great. Thank you, Melissa, for letting me know that you can hear me. Whew. I always get so nervous when I do these just because of the technology. You just want to make sure everybody can see the screen, everybody can hear. So thank you for letting me know, Melissa. Ron would like ideas for new hikes to do in Europe. Perfect. Welcome. You're in the right place. So I encourage everybody else, please let me know the number one thing you want to get from this webinar. And I'm going to come check back here later. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen here so that we can go ahead and get started. So now that we know how to share this, how to communicate, just want to let you know, so you are in the right place if you're interested in hiking in Europe, but you're overwhelmed by all the choices. You don't know where to hike. Europe is huge. There's so many different kinds of hikes. There's so many different countries. There's so many different cultures. It can be really, really overwhelming and kind of paralyzing. Or perhaps you also want to hike, but it's Europe. So you really want to experience the culture and gastronomy. So you want a mix of hiking and these other amazing experiences that you have in Europe. You don't only want to hike. Or perhaps you're like, yeah, it looks great, but I have no idea the best way to organize it. And especially if I don't speak other languages besides English. So how am I going to do that? So if this is of interest to you, you are definitely in the right place. So how to interact today. So I think most of you have talked about this with the chat box at the bottom here. And then you enter your comment right here, and then I'm going to be able to see it. Now, I will let you know when I'm in presentation mode, I can't see the chat box. So we're going to do a practice part right now. So please let me know where you're joining us from in the chat box, just to make sure we know how to communicate. And then I will, when I'm not presenting, take a look and get to all your questions that you have at the end. And there'll be different points. I'll be asking for your poll as well for your participation. So I'm just going to stop this so we can see where everybody is coming from. Here, we've got the chat. Okay, I can hear you. Melissa's saying, I want to learn all about multi-day and single-day hikes in Europe and possibly winter snowshoe hikes. Excellent. We're not talking that much about snowshoeing today, but remind me at the end, and happy to do that. It was just snowshoeing last weekend. Absolutely love snowshoeing. We have Susan from Colorado Springs, Colorado. Welcome. Melissa's from Toronto, fellow Canadian. Excellent. Somebody from Mexico. Hola. Oh, love Mexico. And from Nice, France. Oh, Nice is so beautiful. Keep it coming, and I will come back and check that. So thank you for everybody for letting me know where you are. I love seeing people from all over the world. Okay, so we're going to continue here. Now that we know how to interact, why we're all here, a little about me, basically who I am and why you should believe I actually know what I'm talking about, because that's important. My name is Laura Robbins. I grew up in a very small town in the Canadian Rocky Mountains. So for me, hiking and mountains has always been a big part of my life. And I've now lived in Europe for the past 9.5 years, specifically in Germany. And I'm in the mountains almost every weekend. I guess I've probably done about somewhere around 500 hikes in Europe. A lot of those are day hikes, but also multi-day hikes as well. Super passionate about that. And in Canada, I've probably done close to 1,000 hikes, I guess. And then different hikes in different places in the world as well. But I really, really am an avid hiker because I believe if we're talking about hiking, you should actually be a hiker. The other thing that I really believe in is I truly believe we would all be much happier if we spent more time hiking. I think we're so busy, we have so many demands, on our lives and so much pressure. I really think we all need more time in nature and outside just to disconnect. And perhaps even more importantly, we need time with ourselves, time with our loved ones. And that's why I'm so passionate about hiking, and I go hiking almost every single weekend. And then plus do long distance hikes because I think it is so important. So that's a little bit about me, but enough about me. This is what we're going to cover today. So we're going to talk about the different types of hikes that you can do in Europe, the best time of year to hike, how to organize your hike, and what to do with your luggage, which is really important if you're coming to Europe and the hike is maybe part of your trip, but not the only part. The types of accommodations that you can expect, which if you're coming from Mexico or Canada and the US, there are some differences, some similarities, but also some differences. And then a selection of my favorite hikes in Europe. And this last one, I'm going to be honest, a little bit nervous to share it, but the popular hike that I think is overrated. I'm sure some of you will disagree with me, so really excited to get into an interesting discussion around that, and any questions that you have. I will do my best to answer all your questions. Okay, so the types of hikes that you can do in Europe. So in terms of length, you can do anything from 1 hour, probably less than 1 hour to be honest, to over 30 days. So whatever length you're looking for, you will find it in Europe. In terms of geography, everything from coastal hikes to rolling hills to forests to the Alps. So again, if you're looking for something really easy, you'll find it. If you're looking for something in between or something very strenuous, you will find that as well. You can also find hikes with a gastronomy and cultural focus where you're going to stay in villages. So in this case, you're hiking for a few hours a day, but it's only part of the experience. So this is really great if you want to be active, but you also you have other interests as well, or you want to be able to take a 2 or 3 hour lunch, which I'm personally also a big fan of as well. Then there's those kinds of hikes that you can do in Europe. Other types of hikes are the strenuous ones. So where the main focus is hiking. Now, of course, if you're in France and Italy, you're going to be eating great food as well. But the real focus on the strenuous hikes in the Alps really is the hiking part of it. And then finally, there are the themed hikes like the Camino de Santiago, which is a really famous pilgrimage route. Goes back hundreds and hundreds of years of history in Spain. Okay, poll time. This is what I would like to know. To get your interaction, have you hiked in Europe before? So I'm just going to launch the poll here. Have you hiked in Europe before? Okay, you should see this. If you've hiked in Europe before, please answer yes or no. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to go back to the chat. Oh, we have Ron is from Calgary, Canada. Oh, very cool, Ron. I lived in Calgary. I'm originally from Pincher Creek, but I lived in Calgary for 12 years. Currently in Maui. I'm very jealous. We have rain in Munich. And you've done the TMB, the AV1, the Brenta, and the Camino. Wow. So you have a lot of experience. We have somebody from Truckee, California. Welcome, Karen. We have Francisco from Ola from Spain. Very cool. And Melissa from Mont Blanc. Okay, so this is really interesting. So most of you have hiked in Europe before. I'm just going to end the poll here. Share results. So you can see 90% of you have hiked in Europe before. One of you hasn't. So really interesting, and whether you've hiked in Europe before or not, you're in the right place. I promise you're going to learn something. Okay, so we will go back to sharing the screen. Oops. I'm not sure what happened there. Let's try that again. Share screen. Okay. There we go. Okay, the best time of year to hike in Europe. This is something I get asked about a lot. And it really depends where you want to go and what type of hike that you're looking for. So if you're looking for hiking year round, Canary Islands is one of the few spots that you can hike year round. Now, Canary Islands belong to Spain, but they are off the about 100 kilometers off the west coast of Africa. So that's why it's quite hot. You can hike there year round, but I personally probably wouldn't recommend it in July and August because it gets very, very hot. I was hiking there this year, the end of September, and it was also still quite hot even at the end of September. Now, if you're looking at doing a coastal hike, like you're looking at probably mid-March to the end of October, depending where it is. It also is possible to do it in July and August, but you have to keep in mind it will be very hot. If you're looking at hiking in Costa Brava, Spain, in summer it could be around 35 degrees, some days even 40 degrees. So we tend to say, yeah, it's possible in July and August, but really the coastal hikes are really better in spring and in fall. Now, if you're looking at hiking in Scotland, so for example, the West Highland Way, or in Ireland, the Wickland Way, you're looking mid-March to the end of October. And the summer months are totally fine for those hikes because it doesn't get that hot in Ireland or in Scotland. Now, if you're looking at doing a multi-day hike in the Alps, like the Tour de Mont Blanc or in the Dolomites, your season is much more limited, probably around the third week in June to mid-September. Now, having said that, if you are looking to do a day hike, you can hike there year-round. You can do winter hiking. It's also possible to do snowshoeing, which you can probably go to around 1,800, 2,000 meters in the snow, but it's just a lot trickier to do a round tour. Many of the huts are closed. But like I said, if you wanted to do snowshoeing or a day hike, you can do it year-round. In Munich, I'm in the Alps in Germany and Austria almost every weekend, and I hike or snowshoe year-round. Usually I start hiking, bring the snowshoes, and see whether or not I'm going to end up snowshoeing, depending how much snow there is. So that is possible. The Camino de Santiago is also possible year-round. Again, it gets really hot in summer. Like I said, it is possible to do in winter, but it does get rainy from mid-November to mid-February. So just something to keep in mind there. So how to organize your hike and what to do with your luggage. So basically, there's 3 options for hiking in Europe. First one is that you can do it all yourself. By far, it's the most time-consuming. It's also the cheapest. So if you're going to do this, so if you're going to do a day hike, there's a website I recommend called outdooractive.com. And then, so if you're going to be in Chamonix in France, for example, you would just put that in, and then there's different filter criteria you could use. So you could filter it by length, by how, the distance you want to go, if you want an easy hike or a medium hike. So that's a really good option, for finding day hikes in Europe. They have a lot of, probably thousands and thousands of day hikes in Europe. It's one that I personally use for planning a lot of my day hikes as well. So it is very time consuming, but it is the cheapest. So if you're on a budget, that is the best, the cheapest way to do it. I won't say the best way to do it. Another option, and my personal favorite, is to do a self-guided tour. This way you get the knowledge of an experienced travel planner, but you also get your freedom. So somebody else is booking all your accommodations for you. They're providing you an itinerary, very likely GPS routes. Usually they'll transfer your luggage for you. And then they'll also include on the trail support. So for example, if you sprain an ankle and you're not sure what to do, you're not able to continue hike, you can call them and then they will help you. This is mainly what we do. It's my personal favorite type of hiking. I probably do, for my own personal hikes, 99% of my hikes are probably self-guided because I really, really enjoy this type of travel. I also like it if I'm feeling really tired one day. I don't have to start hiking at 7:30. I can start hiking at 8 o'clock. Or if I'm feeling really energetic, I can hike faster, not have to wait for the group. Or if I just want to have a 2-hour lunch and enjoy the view, I can do that. So I personally really love the freedom of a self-guided tour, but also like knowing that there's been I've had the local knowledge of somebody to help plan that hike. The third option, which is the easiest in terms of organizing the logistics, because you more or less just have to show up as long as you're in good shape and you've been training, but it is the most expensive and it is the least flexible. So they will say, right, we're having breakfast at 7:30, we're leaving at 8, this is the pace that we're hiking at. So it's one of my least favorite ways of hiking, to be honest. But if you are looking for something easy or you're new to hiking and not so sure about route finding, participating in a group tour can be a good option. And luggage transfer can usually be arranged. So for the self-guided tours and group tours, you can usually have luggage transfer organized. As it depends on the destination. So for example, in the Dolomites in Italy, it's possible, but it's really, really expensive. So in that case, we recommend not doing it. Now, if you are doing it yourself, you will need to find somewhere to store your luggage. So the best option in that case is if you're staying at the same place before and after your hike, is when you book your accommodation, ask them before you book it if they're able to store your luggage for you. Some places will, some places won't. Depends on the size of their storage and how busy they are. So those are the 3 options that you have. So a comparison, like the pros and cons of the different types of tours. So you can see the flexibility. If you're planning it yourself, you have the most flexibility. Self-guided tours, you are also very flexible to some extent. Guided tours are not as flexible. So you can see the accommodation. You can see, in terms of price, you've got the cheapest, you've got the middle, you've got the most expensive. Who's booking the accommodation for you? On self-guided tours and guided tours, that will be done for you. You will have to do it by yourself if you're planning your tour yourself. Detailed hiking instructions If you're doing it yourself, I would definitely recommend maps. I would see if you can find GPS routes. If there's a specific trail that you're doing, definitely buy the book for that, so you can get some kind of instructions. It won't be the same as a self-guided or guided tour, but that's a possibility. Communicate special requests. This is something we get a lot. So maybe if you're vegan or you're celiac like I am and you can't eat gluten, you can let somebody know that, like the mountain huts that you're staying in advance, but sometimes those requests, there's maybe a communication issue or a language barrier, they don't always get through. So that's something that I think is definitely an advantage, but self-guided and guided. You can get advice from somebody who has actually hiked it. So I've personally hiked every single tour that I've offered, because I feel like that, which sounds like that should be normal for a tour operator. A lot of tour operators haven't actually done the hikes that they've done. And I don't feel then you can provide the best advice if you haven't actually done it. So for example, there was a hike in the Dolomites that my boyfriend and I did this past summer, which I was really excited about. It was beautiful and wanted to offer it as a tour. But there was this really narrow land bridge straight down on both sides. There was no railing, nothing to hang on to. So it was maybe half a meter wide. If you fell off, you would die. And it's like, I don't think I want that for my tour. Even though the rest of the tour was beautiful, that's kind of a deal breaker. We don't want to have people on really dangerous trails like that. And so that's why I think it's really important, to have actually hiked it. Public transportation advice. So on some of the hikes, there are buses that you can take to get from one point to another. If you want to skip some of the parts or to get to your accommodation, it works very different than what it does in North America and Mexico. I would say public transportation in Europe in general is definitely much better, but still can sometimes be a little bit tricky. So for example, for some of our tours in Italy, we don't really know what the schedule of the buses will be running, usually until a week or so in the season when they've actually started running. It depends. Sometimes they actually let us know before, but sometimes we don't know. Just one of those cultural things. Assistance if required on your trip. A lot of people take comfort to know if they sprain an ankle or something happens, that there is, somebody is able to help them to figure out what to do. And luggage transfer, which we mentioned already. Okay, types of accommodation that you can find in Europe. So basically you have 4 choices. The first choice is camping. I will be honest, I'm not really much of a camper anymore. I used to be when I lived in Canada to do the multi-day trips. You had to be a camper. I have not done camping, so it's not something we will be talking about that much. There are certain trails that you can camp on. There are certain trails that you can't camp on. So I can say that. Dormitory accommodation. So this is very different if you're coming from North America. So many of the routes will have mountain huts. And these mountain huts, basically what it is, they are made for hikers. So you will have dormitory accommodation like the one in the picture. This dormitory room was in Italy and it had a total of 4 beds, so 2 other bunk beds. You can just see the 2 of them here. So they're very, very simple. You need to provide a sleeping bag liner, but as you can see, they provide pillows and blankets. So it's very simple. They're usually quite small. There might be as many, like little as 4 people. There could be up to like 30 or 40, which I really do not recommend the big ones, but there are places that have that. So that is the cheapest option besides camping if you do want to stay, in a mountain hut, and these, they're usually right on the trail. The other thing, maybe it seems a little bit like a hostel, but the difference is usually they have a strict lights out policy. And so maybe it's like 10 o'clock, the lights have to be out. Everybody else is hiking the next morning, so people are going to be getting up around the same time. So unlike a hostel, you don't have to worry about people coming in drunk at 2 o'clock and being noisy. Having said that, if you are a light sleeper, there's a good chance somebody will be snoring. So that's something to keep in mind. Another option that you have is private double with mainly shared bathrooms. Now this is also mainly at the mountain huts. Some mountain huts, they will have like a couple of rooms. So you'll have your own room, could be a bunk bed, could be a double bed, depends on the accommodation, but you will be sharing a bathroom because they basically have one bathroom, which is maybe 3 or 4 bathroom stalls, maybe some showers, a sink, and then everybody who's staying there shares that. So it's definitely a step up from dormitory accommodation. Again, very, very simple, but the benefit of those is that those mountain huts are usually right on the trail or very close to the trail. The other option is hotel lodging. Now, this is not available on every tour. So if you really want to stay in a hotel, you're like, no, I don't share bathrooms. Fair enough. But then that's something you really need to choose your tour carefully. So for example, in the Dolomites, you wouldn't be able to get hotel lodging. You would only be able to get a mix of dormitory accommodation and private double. So hotel lodging is something I think most of us are familiar with. It can range from, I didn't put this in here, but from bed and breakfast to 2-star to 5-star. So if you want that, then that's something to consider for a tour as well. Okay, so let's get into what I love talking about, the actual hikes. So here are some of my favorite hikes in Europe. Tour de Mont Blanc. I love this hike because it was my first long distance hike that I did, and it started an obsession with hiking. So we offer tours that are 6, 7, or 10 days. The 6 and 7 days are the easiest. I say easiest, but they're not easy by any stretch of the imagination. You are hiking in the Alps. And it is strenuous, like I said, it is strenuous hiking. So on the 6 and 7 day tour, you're hiking on average 4 to 6 hours a day. But a lot of people find if it says 6 hours, it might take them 7 or 8 hours. The 10-day tour, you're hiking 5 to 6 hours, but it's not uncommon that you could be hiking for 8 hours. So for this, we offer a self-guided tour. We do have 4 guided tours of the year, which are kind of like the best of the Mont Blanc. So it includes hiking, but then includes wine tasting, some cultural activities as well, which we're offering 4 times a year. So the main highlight of this is that you're going to circumnavigate the glacier-covered Mont Blanc. And that is the second highest peak in Europe, the highest peak in the Alps. You're not actually going to go up Mont Blanc. That's mountaineering, something totally different than what we're talking about today. And what's really cool is you're hiking in 3 different countries. So you're hiking in France, Italy, and Switzerland. So it's just really kind of a fun way to see, I get a 360-degree view of the glacier and hike in 3 different countries. So who will enjoy this kind of tour? If you want to experience a longer trek, but with the comforts of mountain huts, or you can also get upgraded accommodation. So on the 6-day tour, we do have the option that you can stay in hotels in villages. It just means you're taking a transfer, either a private taxi or public transportation to do that. So the thing I love about this tour, which is not available in North America for the most part, is the mountain huts that are available all over Europe. It's one of my favorite things about hiking in Europe. In a similar vein for this, but not as well known in North America, Dolomites are very well known in Italy, is Dolomites trek. And so it's in northern Italy. So it's a 7 or 10 day tour, very similar. If you like the Tour de Mont Blanc, you will love the Dolomites. I might even like the Dolomites even a little bit better than Tour de Mont Blanc. I hesitate to say that because I really love the Tour de Mont Blanc as well. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And if you're interested in Via Ferratas, it's also very interesting because in World War I, the soldiers would fight here and they would have to figure out how to get over the mountains. And so they would attach cables and ladders and things to get over the mountains. So you can still do some of that here as well. You get a really dramatic landscapes and a mix of Austrian and Italian food and culture. So people find it a little bit strange sometimes, but in this part of Italy, they actually speak German. They also speak Italian, but for many people, German is their first language because it used to be part of Austria. So it's really an interesting mix of culture. And it wasn't something that I was even aware of until I had moved to Europe. And who will enjoy it? Basically, it's the same as who would enjoy Tour de Mont Blanc. So you want a longer trek, but you want also the comfort of staying in a mountain hut. Okay, now on the other side of this scale, we have the Italian Riviera, so Cinque Terre and beyond. So Cinque Terre is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, very famous for its 5 coastal villages, which are gorgeous. A lot of people will come and see them on a cruise ship, so they're in and out for a day, and it's kind of crazy. One of the things I love about the tour is because you see a different side of the towns at night when a lot of the people that are just there for a day, when they go away. Other great thing about this is you're going to get a lot of coastal views. The food is amazing. I mean, it's Italy. It's right on the coast. If you like fish and seafood and wine, you can't go wrong. You'll be hiking past olive groves. The food is so good. And you get to see some of the most, arguably the most charming seaside villages in all of Europe. Like I said, these 5 villages are really famous. In addition to that, you're also going to see parts that are not so famous. There's an amazing abbey that you either have to take a boat to or you get to hike to. These are not the things that are really famous, but they're actually some of my favorite parts of the tour. So on this tour, it's also self-guided, and it's 4-star hotel accommodation. So in this one, the hotel is really beautiful. You're staying in the same hotel every night and then using that as a base. The Cinque Terre is really well connected by the train. And so the highlights of this is you're going to see the Cinque Terre, which is very famous, but in a way that few people see it, and really get off the beaten path. So of course you're going to see the 5 villages because you want to see that, but you're also going to see some other really cool things that a lot of people don't get to see. So it's a really nice mix. And again, you're going to enjoy it if you really want that mix of hiking. You're hiking on average 4 or 5 hours a day, gastronomy, maybe you want to stop for lunch for a couple of hours or have unlimited gelato stops. You've got time to do that and really experience the culture of these traditional fishing villages. So really, like, I think a nice way to mix it up if you want to experience a lot of different sides besides hiking. Similar to that is this coastal hike that we launched last year from Costa Brava in Spain to France. And so again, it has very much similar to the Cinque Terre, the focus on gastronomy, culture, and charming seaside villages. So this one is also self-guided. This one you are staying in different hotels. So it's a mix of 3- and 4-star hotels. One of the highlights that I really appreciate about this is the landscape that inspired Salvador Dali, the very famous artist. You can also visit his house, which is really cool. One day you hike to one of the most important monasteries in Spain. And then on your last day, you stay in a village which has a really cool castle. So again, a really, really cool mix. Again, it's right on the coast, so the food is amazing, both in Spain and France. Fresh fish, fresh seafood. And the same kind of people will enjoy it that will enjoy the Cinque Terre. So if you're looking for that, that mix of things to do in Europe, really great way. This one has the advantage you're hiking in 2 different countries, which I think is also very cool. Now we're going to talk about other hikes. So I personally don't offer these hikes, but I do recommend them through trusted partners. I have worked with every single one of these partners and done their hikes. So one of my favorite is the West Highland Way in Scotland. This is absolutely stunning. So you can do it in 7 to 9 days. It's hill hiking, so you are getting elevation, but it's not like crazy mountains. So you will hike by Ben Nevis, which is the highest mountain in Scotland, but you're actually not going up Ben Nevis. So it's kind of like rolling hills, anywhere between 400 to about 900 meters of elevation. So a little bit easier than, hiking in the Alps. So they offer self-guided or guided tours. So you can choose from that. And you're going to be staying mainly in bed and breakfast accommodations. So most of the accommodations are really small, they're cozy, they're simple, but really, really warm Scottish hospitality. So the West Highland Way was rated as the best hike in Scotland, in Scotland. And it's frequently one of the best in the world. So you're going to go in landscapes across the famous Loch Lomond, which is this huge, what we would call lake, to the Scottish Highlands. And what I love about this tour is the scenery is constantly changing, and it's a challenge, but it's never too much of a challenge. So if you're kind of not so sure about hiking in the Alps, this is a really good choice. You're going to enjoy it if you want to see Scotland the slow way, because it starts in the small town just outside of Glasgow and finishes in the Scottish Highlands. So you're hiking as the landscape is changing. You're going to see lots of famous Highland cows and really experience the warm comfort Scottish hospitalities in small villages. So it's a really cool way to see a side of Scotland a lot of people don't see. And people on the trail were really, really friendly. Another tour, I think when we think of hiking, we don't always think of Ireland. But Wicklow Way is like one of the most famous trails in Ireland. Now the whole trail, if you want to do it, is 8 days. I personally do not recommend doing the 8-day tour. I would do the 5-day tour. I did the 8-day tour, and it starts hiking you start hiking what they call the Garden of Ireland, which sounds beautiful and it's nice, but basically you're just kind of hiking on roads past farmers' fields. So your time is valuable. I'm good. If you want to do that, then by all means do the 8-day tour. The first 3 days of this tour, honestly, I was like, it's okay. But really it was like the last 5 days where it started to get really good. So that's why I wouldn't recommend doing the whole route. I would recommend the 5-day tour starting in Glenmalure. In terms of the type of hiking, hill hiking and light mountain hiking, again, through various landscapes, which constantly change. It starts off a little bit easier and it gets harder as you get into the Wicklow Mountains. But the Wicklow Mountains are not even close to as big as the Alps, so you don't have to worry that it's going to be crazy hiking. I think the most that you do in one day is 800 meters of elevation a day. It's a self-guided tour, bed and breakfast accommodation. Irish are amazing hosts, really, really friendly, which is what I appreciated about it. The highlights, you're going to be hiking through the Wicklow Mountains National Park, which is gorgeous. You're visiting Glendalough. I always struggle to say the Irish names, which is a beautiful 6th century monastic city. And if you ever watch the TV show Vikings, you will recognize a lot of the scenery because it was featured in that TV show. And the picture here is of Guinness Lake, and that's where the Guinness estate, you can't see it, that's where the Guinness family lives. So similar to who will enjoy it, if you enjoy the West Highland Way, you will enjoy the Wicklow Way in Ireland. Okay, this was the last hike that long distance hike that I did. I just finished this one in the end of September in 2019. So the Canary Islands are located off the west coast of Africa, although they do belong to Spain. And there's a few different islands. La Gomera is not one of the most famous ones. Tenerife is one of the most famous ones. You can actually see it through the just through the clouds there. There's a mountain there that's Teide, the highest mountain in Spain. And so you can also hike on Tenerife, which is also really good. You can see I have a code here, and if you use the code, that will also work on the Tenerife tours as well. What I loved about this is it's a mix of hill hiking and light mountain hiking, and through various island landscapes. So you're going to be, one day you hike to a black sand beach. Other days you get amazing coastal views. You're going to be hiking on gorgeous red rock. And then you're going to be spending some time hiking in Garhonnet National Park, which is a UNESCO Heritage Site. And you're also going to have time to explore the towns. So on the last day of hiking, you end up in this gorgeous seaside town. We ended up going whale watching that day, but you could go to the beach. You could do whatever you like. And then the next day, you have the full day to explore in San Sebastian, which is the largest town on the island with about 8,000 people. So you stay in a really gorgeous four-star hotel. The rest of the tour is 3-star hotels, which are really nice though. Really, really nice 3-star hotels. Except for the last day, you're staying in this 4-star hotel, so you can explore the town. You can hang out at the hotel, get a massage, or enjoy the pool. Totally up to you. So it's just a really, really cool way to explore this island. And you're going to enjoy it if you like exploring lesser known places, and you really want to see a wide variety of landscapes, and you really enjoy staying in small villages and having time to explore 2 of the towns on the island. Okay, here we get into what is maybe a little controversial. I guess we'll see. I shouldn't say, I think it actually is the most popular, but the popular hike in Europe that I think is overrated is actually the Camino de Santiago. And so I did the last 100 kilometers of the Camino. So that's full disclosure, because you can do the full Camino, which takes around, I think it's actually 32 days to do that. And so the Camino is very famous because it's this ancient pilgrimage route. It's most famous that you start it in France and you finish it in Santiago in Spain. But it actually goes all across Europe, but this is like the most famous part is, like I said, the last 30 days, or you can do the last 100 kilometers as I did. And so it's a mix of road hiking and hill hiking. There are some sections of it you actually are just hiking on a road. So you can see in the picture here, you're hiking through this town agricultural landscape, which I think is interesting. Other places, you're hiking by a highway. A lot of times, to be honest, this is why I think it's so overrated. I think it's fine. The scenery is okay, but it's not amazing. And I feel like in Europe, there are so many amazing hikes that I don't want to just hike somewhere. I'm like, okay, it's kind of okay. I want to hike somewhere which is really, really amazing. So having said that, the highlights of this route is that it was used by pilgrims for hundreds of years, and you're going to go past through historic towns, although honestly, most of them I didn't think were that amazing compared to a lot of other amazing towns in Spain. Spain has a ton of gorgeous towns. I just don't think a lot of them were in the last 100 kilometers of the Camino, but who will enjoy it? So it was really interesting because I talked with a lot of other people when I was doing the Camino. Everybody seemed to enjoy it except for myself. So if you do want to connect with other hikers, it's a really good choice because it's super easy to meet people. People are friendly. A lot of people are doing it. So probably if you're hiking by yourself or want to meet other people, this is your best hike in terms of meeting people. The second hike in terms of meeting people that I found was really easy was the West Highland Way in Scotland. There's a lot of Scottish people doing it that are just really open. So that was a good choice. So the Camino is also a good choice if you're doing it for religious reasons or historic reasons. Then I can totally appreciate it. If you're hiking for landscape, and for me, that's one of the reasons, my main reasons for hiking is for landscape. I think it's okay at best. I don't think it's amazing, to be honest. And then the other thing I was really surprised, I've been to Spain probably 22, 23 times, like quite a few times. I love Spanish food. I think Spanish food is amazing. But on the Camino, the places like the restaurants that you're passing right by, they're catering, to people doing the Camino. And like you'd find like a burger. I'm like, I'm in Spain. I don't want a hamburger. I want something really good. And I found like I was so disappointed with the food on the Camino. So if you do decide to do this, and a lot of people do it, so that's just my opinion, because like I said, a lot of people have really liked it. I know Ron has done it, so I'm curious to hear how you enjoyed it. I would recommend choosing restaurants that are slightly off of the Camino route, because then you can kind of get the authentic restaurants, because Spanish people are really picky about their food. They have amazing food. I think it's just the restaurants that are like directly on the path of the Camino. They just know they're going to have pilgrims every single day, so they're not too worried about having great food. There's also a lot of international people that do it, which is why you will find hamburgers, which you would never find like in a real Spanish restaurant. So again, I think it's overrated just because of the scenery, unless you're doing it, like I said, because you want to connect with other people, religious or historic reasons, then it could be a good choice for you. But I think it's important to keep it real. So that's my perspective. So we've talked about a lot of tours. It's poll time again. I would love to hear which tours are you most excited about, and check all that apply. So just going to launch this poll here again. So please let me know which tour you are most interested in, and then I'm happy, we can talk about any questions. I guess we'll get to the questions in a bit, but yeah, I would love to hear which tour you're most interested in. And while we're doing that, I'm just going to come back. Okay, Ron is asking if I can talk about the GR20 in Corsica. Unfortunately, I don't have much to say about it, except for the GR20 in Corsica is known for being the toughest hike in Europe. I think it's like 40 or 50% of people don't finish it. But it is supposed to be amazing. It's definitely on my bucket list. I haven't done it yet. It is hard to do totally on your own, from what I understand, because you're doing quite a few via ferratas. And so if you have all your luggage, that's you're carrying your big backpack, that makes it a little bit challenging to carry it. And also, from what I understand, is water is a challenge on that. So that one I think is probably good to do either with a guide or with a self-guided. Like I said, I haven't done that one yet, but if you do it, please let me know. That's really, really on my bucket list. Okay, Ron is saying we did the full 800 kilometers. Wow, respect. For the Camino, frankly, the last 100 kilometers is the least inspiring. You have to do it all. Okay, really, really good feedback, because yeah, everybody loved it. And I was like, I'm not seeing what's so exciting about it. So, okay, I need to go back and do the other 700 kilometers. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll here, and we can see, let's see the results. Okay, interesting. So the one that people are most interested in, no one's interested in the Camino de Santiago. I'm sorry if I discouraged anybody from doing it, but I do want to be honest. is the coastal hiking Costa Brava, Spain to France. Honestly, I think it is stunning. The other really great thing about that hike is it's never busy. So I was hiking it by myself, felt very, very safe. And I think I hardly ever saw any other hikers on it. It was really, really strange. And apparently it's like that all the time. There's just, there's not that many hikers. And with that hike, we give you a GPS route, like a GPS device. And so it makes it really easy to find your way as well. Okay, the other one people are really interested in is the Dolomites. Excellent choice. Love the Dolomites. I will say for the Dolomites, if you are interested, it's important to book sooner than later. So we have clients that booked last week for July and they had to change their start date because some of the there just wasn't enough accommodations. Some of the places in the Dolomites, there might be 2 huts you can choose from. Sometimes there's only 1 hut, and when it's full, it's full. So the Dolomites fills up really, really quickly, especially in August, because August is when a lot of Italians take their holidays. And so it gets really full. But even for middle of July, I was surprised it was like full so quickly. And then the other one that seems to be popular is the West Highland Way in Scotland. Yeah, really, really cool hike. Really, really enjoyed it. I didn't really have high expectations, to be honest, for the West Highland Way, but really, really enjoyed that. So thank you for sharing. That's really interesting to see what you're interested in. So thank you for that. Okay, so then we're going to go back to our presentation here. Share screen. Okay, you're all hikers, so I'm sure that you're very aware of this, but I just wanted to share my story. So I mentioned that I've done tons and tons of hikes, but my first like really long distance hike of like more than 3 days wasn't until a few years ago. And it was like at such a low point in my life. I just had surgery and the surgery didn't work and I was having to have more surgery, and which I really wasn't happy about. And I just needed to do something epic. I was in such a funk, like, couldn't get out of my pajamas, just like feeling I didn't have control over things. And so I Googled epic hikes in Europe. It was literally what I Googled. And the Tour de Mont Blanc came up. And because I just knew I had to do something epic. Like for me, hiking, I go to the mountains to celebrate. If I'm having like a great day, if something bad happens, then I also go to the mountains. The mountains are my solution for everything. And so I knew I needed to do something epic. Like a day hike wasn't going to cut it. And so when I did the Tour de Mont Blanc, I was a lot slower than I normally would have been because I'd had surgery a few weeks before. I had surgery literally the day after, again, after I finished doing it, which my doctor was not very happy about. But it totally changed my life because it gave me that control back. And I feel like when you're doing a multi-day hike, I'm sure Ron felt this many times doing 800 kilometers of the Camino. There's sometimes you might just want to give up. You're just tired. It's like, why am I doing this? Like, no one's making me doing this. Why am I doing this? And I would keep saying to myself, like, you can do it. You can do it. Like one more step, just put one foot in front of the other. And you would do it. And you had this like amazing feeling of like, yes, I did it. And so that was a really cool feeling. But what was really unexpected for me is how that transferred into so many other areas of my life. So maybe I would run into a challenge at work. I'm like, oh, I can't do that. It's so frustrating. I'm like, well, you didn't think you could finish the Tour de Mont Blanc either. And you did it. Or, all of these challenges that come up in life. So for me, that was one of the biggest unexpected benefits of a multi-day hike, which I really didn't expect. And it had such a profound impact on me that I swore after that I would do one long distance hike every year. And I have 2 years ago, I did 3 of them in 1 year. So I think that that's really, really cool. And that's true whether you're hiking in Europe or whether you're hiking in Mexico or Canada or the US, wherever you're hiking. So I really would encourage you to get out and do a multi-day hike. I think the benefits can be absolutely profound. So I really hope today, in 2020 is the year that you make your dreams of hiking in Europe come true. You can email me any questions, and I'm going to stop the share here and take any questions that you have in the chat. But just want to say thank you so much for coming. I really, really appreciate your time, and I hope it's been really valuable. I hope it's been really, really valuable for you. And then I will email the presentation to you with the links in case you're curious about that, but please do take some time to ask me some questions in the chat. So I'm just going to come to the chat now, and yeah, we can talk about whatever questions that you may have. So Ron is asking, what route do you do in the Dolomites? Great question. We do a route that is similar to the Alta Via 1, and it goes up the Dry Zinnen, also called the Tre Cima. I'm going to say that wrong in Italian. And so we do one more like in the northern Dolomites. So I'm happy to send you information on that. What I loved about it is the landscapes are always changing. And I mean, the Dolomites are really popular, but because there's so many different routes, you don't really see that many hikers. So around the Dry Zinnen, which are the three mountains, the really famous three mountains, I had shared a picture of them earlier. Around there, of course, there are a lot of hikers. The rest of the time, we really didn't see that much. And that's something I really appreciate, because some trails in Germany, or not, well, Germany also, but in Europe can be quite busy. So that's really important. Melissa said, this is very helpful. Oh, thank you, Melissa. I'm really glad to hear that. Have you heard of the Cleveland Way in England? No, I have not heard of that. I'm going to have to look that up. Yeah, I know there are supposed to be some good walks in England. There's Adrian's Wall. You can walk from coast to coast, which I've heard some good things about, but I haven't done that. So are there any other questions? Oh, I can see somebody has something, a Q&A here. Let me just see. Okay, so Karen is asking, she hiked in Mont Blanc last year and loved it. Yay! She did the self-guided hike, a fan of circle loop hikes. Thinking about the Dolomites next summer, is this a loop? I'm sure you could do a loop hike in the Dolomites, but the one that we have is not a loop. You start one place and you do end somewhere different. And same with the Alta Via 1, which is the most famous one in the Dolomites. Yeah, that also is, you start one place, you finish someplace different. And the other hikes I've done in the Dolomites, I've just done 3 or 4 day hikes. Those also haven't been loop hikes. So I'm quite sure that it's possible that, that you can hike in a loop in the Dolomites. I just haven't done any. Francisco is asking, is there any tour that includes hiking with you? Great question. At the moment, no, but I am looking at doing that for next summer. Possibly doing a group tour. Like I mentioned before, I personally am a bigger fan of the self-guided hikes, just because of the flexibility and some of the other things that I mentioned. So, but it really depends, I think, on what works for you. Some people love group tours, so really, really depends, I think. Okay, I don't see any other questions coming in, so I'm going to wrap it up there because I really respect your time. So I just want to say thank you so much. Watch for an email from me. I will include links to the tours in case you would like more information about that. If you are interested in the tour to Mont Blanc, we do have our early bird special is ending today. Today is the last day for that. And there are a few other ones, we do have like 200 euros off on the Costa Brava, Spain to the France tour. If you book on certain dates, if you book that in April or March, April, May, and in October, you can save 200 euros. It's the same deal with the Cinque Terre tour. And we do have an early bird special for the Dolomites, which goes until April 4th. But again, if you are interested in the Dolomites, I would recommend booking that sooner than later, just because accommodations are filling up really, really quickly. So thank you so much for joining us. It was very cool to have people from all over the world. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, let me know. And thank you again for joining us. Melissa just wrote, thank you so much. Great ideas given here. Thank you, Melissa. That makes me so happy. Really appreciate that. And yeah, Janet saying gracias. Thank you so much, everybody. And enjoy the rest of your day. And I hope your weekend includes some hiking. Thank you.